Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever felt like your own behaviors are a complete mystery to you, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're taking a really fascinating journey into the human mind by unpacking Carl Jung's analytical psychology. And don't worry, rather than just being some dusty old academic theory, this is actually a highly relatable, incredibly practical toolkit for understanding our everyday behaviors, our secret motivations, and our hidden potential.
I mean, think about it. Why do we fall in love at first sight? Or, on the flip side, why do we constantly repeat the exact same toxic patterns in our relationships or our careers? We've all been there, right? These are universally relatable experiences. Well, it turns out that a 20th century Swiss psychiatrist actually holds the fascinating answers to these very questions. But to find those answers, we have to look way beneath the surface of our conscious minds.
So here's our roadmap for the journey today. We'll be covering the break with Freud, mapping the collective unconscious, the quest for individuation, engaging the shadow, the empath's dilemma, and finally, Jung in the modern world. Let's get into it.
Okay, Section 1. The break with Freud and their historical schism. Jung and Freud's relationship moved incredibly quickly from collaboration to an explosive falling out. These two actually met back in 1907 and fast became close colleagues, with Freud really seeing Jung as his intellectual heir. By 1911, Jung was even made the very first president of the International Psychoanalytical Association. But then, right there in 1912, everything changes. Jung publishes Psychology of the Unconscious, presenting ideas that Freud considered to be absolute heresy. And by 1913, the friendship and the professional relationship were officially over. So, what was this massive heresy?
Well, Freud basically viewed the unconscious mainly as a personal unconscious. Think of it like a dark storage room for repressed sexuality and instinctual drives. But Jung? He looked at his patients' dreams and saw universal myths and symbols. He proposed the collective unconscious, which is more like a vast ocean of shared ancestral memory, filled with what he called archetypes. Jung de-emphasized sexuality to focus instead on a shared inheritance of universal human experiences.
Moving right along to Section 2, let's take an architectural tour and map out this collective unconscious.
First up on our tour is the persona. This is the social mask we present to the world, and the term actually comes from the Latin word for an actor's mask. We all need a persona, right? It's a totally necessary compromise between who we really are and what society demands of us on a daily basis. It helps us adapt, but it carries a massive danger, creating a completely false self if we start identifying too deeply with it.
So the crucial point here is that people can completely lose their true identities in these everyday societal roles. Think about that professor who basically becomes identical with their textbook, or maybe a friend you have who just never drops their perfect professional work mask, even when you're just hanging out at a dinner party. When the mask becomes the master, the true personality gets completely denied.
Next, we've got the anima and animus. Jung identified the archetypal anima as the unconscious feminine component in men and the animus as the unconscious masculine component in women. Now, these aren't just abstract floaty ideas. They are highly complex internal guides that shape our deepest emotional connections and even our most irrational moods. They basically act as a bridge, trying to lead our conscious ego toward our true unconscious unified self.
And this is where it gets incredibly practical. When we ignore these internal complexes, we project them onto other people. This is actually the phenomenon behind love at first sight. According to Jungian theory, when you feel instantly, intensely, maybe even irrationally attracted to a total stranger across the room, you aren't actually seeing them. You are projecting your own unconscious anima or animus right onto them. It's a wildly powerful psychological driver that suddenly makes perfect sense of a really mysterious human experience.
All right, Section 3, the quest for individuation and achieving wholeness.
Jung called this overarching process individuation. And honestly, it is the ultimate quest. It's the lifelong journey of slowly peeling off that false persona we talked about earlier and consciously integrating those hidden unconscious elements. And look, the goal here isn't perfection. The goal is actualizing the self. It's about becoming your most authentic, resilient, and complete totality by finally balancing both the conscious and the unconscious mind.
In a clinical setting, therapists actually facilitate this using a fascinating technique called active imagination. It works in 4 steps. First, you encounter a random unconscious symbol, maybe an image from a recurring dream. Second, you meditate on it, actively engaging with the imagery. Third, this bridges the gap,
pulling hidden emotional content right up into your conscious awareness. And finally, step 4, you integrate that discovery as a real-world insight to fundamentally change how you live your daily life.
Which brings us to Section 4, Engaging the Shadow and Uncovering Hidden Gold.
The shadow is basically everything we repress or deny about ourselves. It's all the disowned qualities of our conscious self. Sure, it contains everything we consider morally reprehensible, our selfishness, our anger, our greed. But importantly, and a lot of people miss this, it also contains our undiscovered gold. We're talking about hidden positive potential and creativity that we were told to suppress when we were growing up.
Just like the anima, if we don't actively own our shadow, we're going to project it. This can manifest as the totally unacknowledged harshness of someone who prides themselves on being perfectly kind, or maybe the hidden pain driving a colleague's toxic charm. Acknowledging our own hidden shadow traits stops us from projecting our own flaws onto other people. It takes the power away from our destructive habits and is absolutely essential for building authentic relationships.
Let's move into Section 5, the empath's dilemma, dealing with extreme sensitivity.
Jung was radically ahead of his time on this. When a lot of psychiatry was just dismissing highly sensitive people, he believed empaths had genuine neurological differences and real abilities. They can actually perceive emotional fields, instantly recognize unconscious patterns, and even detect that shadow we just talked about in other people. But Jung noted a major problem here. Empaths mistakenly absorb these energies instead of just observing them. They basically use their sensitivity backwards, which just results in chronic, crushing exhaustion. To stop empaths from drowning in everyone else's chaos, Jung taught a really profound grounding technique. He told them to constantly ask themselves this incredibly simple, actionable question. Is this mine? When anxiety or heavy emotion suddenly hits, just pausing to ask this helps an empath perceive the emotion without actually taking it on as their own. It's like seeing a storm without having to actually become the rain.
Jung ultimately concluded that empathic abilities exist for navigation and protection, absolutely not for rescue or self-sacrifice. He gave this really stark warning. Just because you understand someone's wounds or can clearly see their shadow, it does not make them safe to be around. Empaths have to use compassionate discernment. You can see clearly and you can care inwardly, but you must choose your boundaries wisely to maintain your own psychological health.
And finally, Section 6, Jung in the Modern World, our 21st Century Survival Guide.
You'll find Jungian concepts actively used in modern clinical practice right now, today. Therapists integrate his analytical techniques to address the symbolic, emotional, and non-rational human experiences that standard behavioral models often completely miss. It provides a much more holistic approach to psychological suffering, one that truly respects the deep, messy complexity of the human psyche.
And these applications go way beyond the therapist's couch. By doing the deep work of individuation, we build the exact psychological resilience we need to face modern issues. We're talking about everything from navigating career burnout and work-life balance to processing the overwhelming existential dread surrounding global climate change. Jung's theories are even used today in architecture and urban planning to literally create spaces that resonate with our fundamental human archetypes. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on as you navigate your own life. Are you living as your true self? Or are you just playing the role of your persona? The journey to uncover that answer might just be the most important work you ever do. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning what lies beneath the surface.